Yes, now? Okay. So how's everybody doing today? Good? So
Good.
my challenge for today is to develop habits and routines so that we can stay in touch with everybody that we need to stay in touch with. And I also believe that even our team members and possibly even ourselves, when we call our database, we don't know exactly what we're going to say. And if we don't know exactly what we're going to say, we're probably going to have call resistance. And this is really relevant to me, and I want to share it with you as my respected partners, is that the better we get at training our team members, it's going to up our level, and it's going to be like this cycle of success. Because if we can teach people and we go through everything we do, we're actually going to do it better ourselves. If that makes any sense. So the design conversation, um, for example, I was studying some of the lending industry and some of the habits that they have and that they're promoting. And this was, I think, genius. Or maybe it's obvious you're already doing it. And if you are, it's a reinforcement. But the best lenders across the country are very disciplined. And what they do is they make all their calls early, and every day they have a segment of the business that they call. So, for example, on Mondays, they follow up on all the open house activity, and they call all their real estate partners. On Tuesdays, they might call everybody that they have in process with the pre-approval. On Wednesday, they are going to be calling their 30, 60, 90, and 360 anniversary calls. So after they close, these best lenders are calling 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days afterwards. And most of them have almost the exact strategy. And, one of the things that they say is, "Hi, can I count on you to call me when when a friend, family member, or coworker is looking to buy, sell, or refinance?" Now, certainly we can transition that to buy, sell, or rent, right? Simple. The call 30, 60, 90 days, their 1 year anniversary. I think if we're not doing that, we're missing a huge, huge opportunity to stay front and center and uh, basically have more of an impact, right? I don't think most agents are calling, periodically after closing. To be honest, I really hadn't, thought about the value of doing that on a regular basis. But if you were to call them on the 30th day, and say, "Hey, you've been in there for a month, hey, it's 2 months. What do you think of it? How was it?" And then always ask, "Do you know anyone else I could help?" Right? Without it being a contrived call, I think that would be tremendously valuable. What other scripts, and this is where the collaborative part comes in, what other scripts do you feel would be authentic to you, on uh, reaching out to people?
Hey, Rob, I think that even when we're in the transaction with some of these customers, we should already be looking for the referrals. Brian Buffini always says it, even, while you're working with the buyer or working with the seller, hey, do you happen to know anybody who can also use my services? So
So, so Paul, that's a great observation. I call those, and I spoke about those before, but those are like
I'm
milestone
sorry. Okay.
requests. No, but not today, but I spoke about them like
Okay.
previously. So I think a great opportunity would be, "Hey, Paul, I just wanted to congratulate you. I see that you and Matt, you and Frank have gotten your loan approval squared away. That must be a huge relief. Now all we need to do is find the house. By the way, boom, you go into it, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we have a signed contract in New Jersey. This is congratulations, right? Then, hey, we survived through attorney review. You do the same thing. hey, we got through the inspection. Hey, we got through the appraisal, and then you can do it again, the walkthrough and the closing. And you don't want to be, a transparent, lead magnet. You have to be authentic, but
Yeah,
certainly reminding them that, hey, my goal is, somebody had said this, and I thought this was great. My goal is not just to sell your house when they take a listing. My goal is to sell your neighbor's house and your brother's house. What do you mean by that? Well, I want to do such a great job that I want you to think of me whenever you hear anybody talking about real estate, right? So it presumes that, they're going to be satisfied, but it says, hey, I want to, now that we've partnered up, I'm going to get the job done for you, but I want to sell your friend, your neighbors, your family member's house. So I love the idea of milestones. In terms of team leadership, maybe we can come up with a authentic, unique, segment that we call every day. So maybe, on Thursdays, you call everybody that's ever made an offer with you until they tell you to buzz off, or they say, hey, let's start having that conversation again. Because we know that, people we met at open houses, people we've gotten from realtor.com, Zillow, and other online leads portals, that the loyalty, probably is not as robust as we'd like to see it. So having that habit and having that time blocked, I think is going to make a huge difference. And even if it was only one day a month that we went back to everybody that didn't buy with us, right? Maybe it's the third Thursday of the month from, 8:30 to noon. We call everybody that hasn't bought with us, and we put a hashtag into our CRM till they tell us to buzz off, or they're saying, hey, you know what? I really appreciate you giving me a call. We were thinking about, looking again. And then painfully, you might find out that many of them have already bought, right? Does anybody else have any, I'm going to use the term design conversations that you coach your team members on?
I just tell them to pretty much to be natural, just ask for the business politely, and maybe even send out something to them after the appraisal is done. That's usually the last step of the deal, because everything else has been already approved. So just send them out something or give them a call saying the appraisal's done. If you know anyone that's looking to buy, sell, or invest, we'd hope that you give us a call. And most people do. Most people say, yeah, for sure. We really appreciate all your help.
In looking at, how the lending industry, at least from the lens that I've been looking at it, how are they planning on making a contribution? Again, I think the most successful lenders, are using that cliche term of they're articulating their value, blah, blah, blah. But what they're doing beyond that is they're educating the customer. And a confused customer always says no. Okay. I think if we can educate the customer on the benefits of now instead of the cost of waiting, showing them how appreciation works, the compound effect of appreciation, the compound effect of interest, educating them on the sequence of how they do things, because if you buy a house and then buy a car, it probably is more sustainable in the qualification standard than if you reverse it, right? Because right now the average car payment is probably $850, and many of our first-time buyers, $850 plus student loans plus a mortgage probably pushes them out of qualification. But if they buy a house, they're comfortable with their payment. Generally, auto loans, from my experience, they don't underwrite them to the same standard. It's more like a credit card underwrite. that it wouldn't impact what they could qualify for. So educating people on just the basics of that. There was a interview I saw with David Rubenstein and John Paulson. Anybody know who John Paulson is? Nobody. Everybody's shy today. So John Paulson was the guy who did The Big Short in the mortgage industry. He bet on the mortgages in 2009 having excessive defaults. And I don't know, maybe he invested $60 million and he made a couple $1 billion because the gamble was so leveraged, and basically short the performance of the mortgage portfolios. David Rubenstein interviews him, and I could probably find this on YouTube, and I did put it on one of our masterminds years ago. He said, you're arguably the smartest investor on the planet. If I came to you and said, I have $100,000, what should I do with it? You know what he said? He said, buy $1 million house, put 10% down, and if it appreciates 5%, you made a 50% return. There's nothing more stable and safe that can beat that. And that's from a securities billionaire. Okay, I think that, we as an industry, we don't do a great job at educating them on what we think they may know, maybe what we're not comfortable educating them on. Maybe we're expecting our lenders to do that. But I do think the wealth effect of home ownership is something that probably isn't talked about in most conversations. And, it's probably at best a missed opportunity. At worst, it's a dereliction of our responsibility to our clients. How many of us know that, with a 5% down and 5% appreciation, like how many of us know what those numbers look like? And if we don't, maybe we should, at least have a cursory understanding of that so that we can support, our vetted lenders or vetted advisors to educate our consumers on that. Right. And when I was listening to some of these lenders talk about how they grow their business and do, massive numbers, one of them said, you know what? If you look at the media, when prices were going up and interest rates were 2%, they said, don't buy a house, homes are too high. Right? Does anybody remember those days when the media would be like, hey, home ownership's going through the roof, don't buy now, it's too expensive? Come on, anybody?
Yes, remember.
Okay.
Yes,
So-
yes, we remember.
Now that interest rates are going up, what's the media saying? Don't buy, interest rates are too high, right? So the media is never supportive of our efforts, and we have to understand that. Have you ever, if you go back and think, have you ever seen in the mainstream media, hey, now's the perfect time to buy a house? I can't recall ever seeing that, to be honest with you. It's always the drama of, ooh, be careful, don't buy now, the prices are too high, interest rates are high. So I'm going to challenge us, and it says, if you want to share it, is to come up with a couple of extra, I'll call it signature design conversations that we can teach our team members to have that will drive some extra value to the process, especially now that we're going to be looking to secure buyer agency agreements on a mass level. So anybody coach your team, or anybody have any conversations that you wanted to share? I see Mr. Charles Horn. How about you?
Rob, you want us to share a story about how we talked to our team about the new brokerage agreement? That's what you want?
Well, so not necessarily the new brokerage agreement, but how are we, you're a team leader. You have a responsibility to help your team members become successful. What conversations are we having, and even beyond the NAR settlement changes, what conversations are we having with our team members on a consistent basis? You know, so in the lending world, here's a couple of them. Here's a lender call to a real estate agent. Hey, Steve, I'm a student of success and I have been, let's see, I'd love to hear your story. I was looking at your buy side transactions and you're crushing it. Okay. That was an example of like a lender, one of their 3 conversations that they have, or speaking to a client. Hey, who do you know today that I can help get pre-approved? Or this would be a realtor. Who do you know today I can help get pre-approved to make sure it's a good use of your time before you go out and show them? Very basic, but we need to have some basic conversations that we're teaching our team members to conduct at a high level. They know exactly what to say, so I have to think about it. And then they don't have to have that call reluctance.
Yeah, hey Rob, it's Charles. Sorry I missed you before.
So,
So-
do you have any,
Sure.
any conversations that you use, Charles?
Yeah, sure. What I do is when I meet a client, I find out what's of interest to them outside the real estate transaction. You know, whether it's personal, sports, even political, newsworthy, etc. I keep careful notes, and then what I do is I periodically text them articles or say, hey, you might be interested in this article. And then, you know, every couple of times I send a communication, I'll ask them, you know, do you know of someone who is currently looking to buy, sell, rent, etc. So I try to build a natural relationship with them, and then I try to kind of slide it in very comfortably, authentically, easily.
So I think,
That's
Charles,
very good.
when you learn a little bit more about it, you kind of understand some of the premises of marketing. And you reminded me of a quote from Seth Godin, who I forget the book he had, but he talked about, you know, somebody going to Home Depot or Lowe's for a 1/4-inch drill bit.
hmm
And he said, nobody wants a 1/4-inch drill bit. What they want is a 1/4-inch hole.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Seth took it a step further and he said, well, why do you want a 1/4-inch hole? He said, so I can hang a shelf. Why do you want to hang a shelf? So I can declutter my house. Why do you want to declutter? Do you know what I mean? You can keep going deeper and deeper in those
Mhm.
concepts. So it's not, I'm coming to buy a 1/4-inch drill bit. It's, you know, I want to declutter my kid's bedroom because it's a mess by putting up shelves or whatever that is.
Mhm.
And then what does that mean to you, right?
Correct. hmm
So anyway, thanks for sharing that. And I think some of these lenders that I had observed while driving around on Mother's Day and over the weekend, because I'm always trying to figure out different angles. They actually have like an intake form where they ask a lot of questions kind of outside the process, like you suggested, Charles, where they get to better understand their client or their consumer. And,
Mhm.
you know, I think that, hey, why do you need to know all that? And it's because it's not just a transactional business, it's a relational business. And, you know, we need to figure out how we can deliver value, right? The more you
Right.
understand your consumer, you know, the better you can make recommendations and the easier it is to check in with them later on, right?
Yep. It reminded me of something you said a week or two ago about caring. You know, people, once they know they care about you or something, you had a kind
Yeah,
of saying.
well, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Is that it?
Yeah, exactly.
And I
That,
think that's, you know, that's a foundational principle in relationship sales, right?
hmm
You know, if you knew somebody, you know, genuinely cared about you making the right decision, you know, they'll come seek you out as opposed to you having to chase them.
Exactly.
And you know, number one, it's something that, you know, we need to internalize. And number two, it's something that we need to be able to teach to the people that are looking for us to mentor them in their business.
Yeah, you have to teach it so it's natural for them in their style and their way of doing it. So you should share the concept with them, but they have to make it because it's got to come across as authentic, genuine, true caring. Can't make it up, you know. Otherwise, you get commission breath all over you, right? So, I just recently had a doctor who referred me to another doctor to sell his property, who was married actually who he had a business partner with someone whose wife was a realtor, but he owned it. So I found this out in the researching. So when I met him and I presented my price opinion to him, he says, "It's your listing." I didn't have to explain anything. He said, "Al recommended you highly, and I made my decision based on Al's recommendation." Now, Al, I sold a lot to a couple of years ago down in Princeton, where he ultimately built his home. And he said to me, "Listen, my wife loves this property. She wants it. I can't lose it, but I don't want to pay $5,000 more than I have to." So I presented a strategy to him with we were competing with a builder, local builder in Princeton. And so we used a escalation process and we got the deal. So after that, he goes, "Charles, you not only got me the house, but you saved my marriage." So, that's a true relationship. So he remembered that and just referred this doctor to me, who called me and scheduled the appointment, and I listed the medical office property in Montgomery, actually on 206.
And I think, sometimes we do things, Charles, that we don't realize that we're doing, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm sure that whoever the other agent was on the other side of that transaction that you secured,
Mhm.
not only did you need to sell the buyer, spouse, you also had to convince the seller
Mhm.
through the listing agent, at which point you needed to build a relationship with that listing agent, right? Probably
Yeah,
when there were other people trying to do so. But
absolutely.
the good news is that, by and large, the industry is a D in terms of sending consistent value-based proposals to a listing agent or the ultimate seller. I mean,
Mhm.
Glenn Baker's video that often gets forwarded along is an excellent way of making sure the message doesn't get muffed, right,
Mhm.
when they forward it along. But, obviously, when you're talking to a listing agent, "Hey, my name's Charles, I have 21 years, 29 years of experience, I hope my offer is competitive. But most importantly, if your seller or when your seller accepts my offer, they'll know that, we're going to perform and do what we said we're going to do. We're not going to play games," right?
Yep,
And
$100%.
if you say those things with intent and integrity,
Mhm.
you will find that there are many times, not always, maybe it's not even a majority, but there are times when they will intentionally or subliminally repeat, say, "This guy Charles, his client's offer is competitive. It's not a cash offer, but I got a really good feel that they're going to do what they like." They'll be
Yep.
repeating that and sometimes you might want to, even say that politely without being obnoxious 2 or 3 times
Mhm.
during that conversation so that it resonates. Um, but I would like us all to have, some more, design conversations that we can teach our team members to have on a consistent basis to grow the relationships that we have. A database, Carlos, you got to turn that off. A database is, a database is your value, right? If you were to sell your business, what you're selling is the repeatable amount of business that can be coming from something, and that something is your past clients. And the only way that that's repeatable is if it's in a database, right? And if you have a system of harvesting that database. Now, I don't know that, that this is a fact, but I did hear, somebody in the lending side say that for every 100 people they put in the database, they can expect a $300 return. And they said monthly, which, well, maybe it is monthly. So it's $3,000. That's probably one closed loan or maybe half a closed loan for every 100 people they put in the database. We should probably have similar numbers that if we manage the database correctly, that we can expect to have a harvest. And they said that, what was it say? They say that you could be like a hunter in this business, right? Where you go and you hunt down business which is quite frankly, it's a little bit exhausting, right, to keep hunting down new business. Or you said that what a farm is when you take all the animals that you're hunting, you put a fence around them, and that's your database, that's your farm. It's much easier to get a yield from your farm than to keep constantly go hunting. And I kind of like that analogy.
Well, it's also
Yeah.
it's also a lot better too, because the relationships that you foster and develop over time with the people that you're communicating with on a regular basis is so much more productive and fulfilling than feeling like you're just dialing for dollars. I mean, some people do that. God bless them. You know, but I think building the relationships, it's much more rewarding, and it's rewarding financially down the road. I think if you can, convert.
I'm gonna just ask most of you to just volunteer this number. If I just asked you for your impact, what percentage of your peers? Now, keep in mind, half the business doesn't even make a sale a year. But what percentage of our industry gets a B or better on managing their database, in your opinion? And my coach Wayne was asking this morning. He's like, what percentage of people do you think do a good job? And my answer was it's in the single digits. I won't tell you where I put it, but it's in the single digits. What are your opinions? Like, what percentage of your peer group do you think do a good job at managing their database?
5%.
5% from Glenn. And then Glenn, how about your team?
Probably just moderately better than that, maybe 10.
Really? And okay. I would have thought you would have been at 70% for your team, but that gives us some room to grow.
It's the same struggle. I think everyone kind of kids themselves, Rob, that they're doing the follow-up that they need. And also, I'll call it, real follow-up, material follow-up, not tacky follow-up, right? So, yeah, it's tough.
Okay. That's a shocker for me, Glenn, but it gives me an opportunity to hopefully make a contribution for your team. Who else? Andrew, it looks like you want to chime in.
I know myself, I'm probably about 5%. I mean, there's just so much going on that even with tag, I use Follow Up Boss, and even with tagging everything, trying to keep up with things that I don't do a good enough job to kind of keep that stuff going. And when I do, I'm always picking up extra leads or opportunities.
And Lynn Schmitz, what do you think your peer group, forget about you and your team, what do you think your peer group does, or what percentage of them do you think have their database performing at a B or better?
I would probably say 3%. I know that's low, but we are working currently on our CRM and getting everybody to put things in their CRM and do the reaching back out. So I'd say ours is pretty low.
And Marilyn, you've been working with a lot of our team members here in Westfield. Where would you say that you think the industry's at in terms of managing a database?
Well, speaking for Westfield, that office, I'd say we're probably about 4 or 5%.
My God, that pains my heart.
Yeah, well, they're working on it though. They really are. But that's where I see us at.
So, as team leaders, the purpose of this call is, to take a look at and impact the team members that we have an obligation to help. Otherwise, we shouldn't have them on our team. And the biggest gift that we're going to get is the fact that we're going to improve our own skills by contributing value to the team members. Right. And I think, Charles, you had mentioned to me earlier in the call, people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Yes.
And I think that we need to care upon our team members so that they know that we're having these hard conversations, not to be critical, but to ensure that they're going to be successful because we care about them.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
And that's a pretty high standard, and it puts us in a position of having some tough conversations. And sometimes, people don't want to follow people who just say what to do, but don't do it. So if we're telling them you have to make your calls and we're not making the calls, guess what's going to happen, Charles? They're not going to do it,
Exactly.
right? That's
Well-
called hypocrisy.
Yep. Well, it's interesting with what you're talking about. When I was at Lucent AT&T and they were grooming me for director of the vice president position at the time, I had a VP who was my mentor, and I said to him, if you could give me one piece of advice that's really, really important to success, what would it be? You know, and that's a very hard question to answer because there's usually not just one thing. But he said to me, get the truth. Have people feel comfortable telling you the truth. He says in a corporate environment, people will, not be honest with themselves, be honest with others. Then you're making very important decisions based on faulty data. So the thing is with teams, and when I do create a team, I want to really foster a culture of, trust and truth. Because if you have that, then you can work with it. If people tell you, yeah, I'm following my database 70% or 80%, when the truth is 5%, it's very misleading unless somehow you can discern that on your own, and then you're going to feel like that person's lying to you. So
Right.
I thought
And-
that was really good advice at that time, and is now,
Yeah, so transparency is key.
Yep, trust,
And trust and care. Like,
honesty.
why would a lender ask somebody like all these intake questions to get to know them better? Like, what are your hobbies? What
Mhm.
type of restaurant, like, what type of restaurants do you like? And it's kind of like, I'd be like, well, I just want a mortgage. I just want a 1/4-inch hole. I don't want to have, I don't want to know how the drill works. But I think that by asking those questions, it basically demonstrates that you care, right?
Mhm.
And if you ask them, hey, what type of restaurants do you like? Are you a beer, wine, or spirits person? They might say, hey, I don't drink.
Mhm.
Don't send them a bottle of wine or champagne to celebrate their house.
Right.
But those are all things that demonstrate that we care, that I think we sometimes feel uncomfortable asking because we just don't have a strategy for it. But
Yeah. Or you can open the conversation by talking, by saying, hey, what type of restaurants do you like? I tend to like, X, Y, and Z. So by giving information first, sometimes that opens the door a little bit more too. If people
Yeah.
feel like the relationship is too new and you're getting too personal too quick,
Yeah,
you gotta pace it. You gotta pace that, I guess. Pace and lead it.
What type of hobbies do you have? Or have you ever
Mhm.
seen somebody who has like a the same type of dog? Oh, I have a Labradoodle or a Cockapoo, right? And you have a Cockapoo. Like, there's an instant connection there, right?
Absolutely.
And if it's manipulated, it's just not really impactful.
Mhm.
But I think that there's a way that we can teach our team members, our future team members, a deliberate design conversation, and give them the reasons to call so that there's one less objection. We can teach them the technology, we can give them the reason to make the call, and out of caring, we can hold them accountable, because we know if we don't, that there's going to be very little consistent success.
Mhm.
And I'm going to just leave it with you at that. I hope that you all know that I care and I want to contribute value, and I want to give you the tools to foster mini yous and also make you better in delivering that value to your team members. So anyway, I'm still getting over Glenn Baker getting a 4 or 5% with Sisu. We got a lot of work to do there, Glenn.
Yeah, and it's actually it's really CRM work and doing that piece. We have tons of follow-ups, but that is not talking to people. You can't make the mistake that some kind of automated follow-up is actually connecting with people.
Yeah, you actually have to be in the right mindset, and it's not something that can be done by mandate or threat. It has to be something that needs to be, in my opinion, needs to be adopted by evidence of, hey, hear what other people are doing and they're finding success. And unfortunately, sometimes, Glenn, you can be telling everybody the right thing, and they watch some random knucklehead on YouTube or they listen to a podcast. Like, hey, Glenn, I heard about this. And you'd be like, been telling you that for 7 years.
You want to be the expert, go to next door, right? That's what they always say. You know, one thing that really made a material difference in our follow-up recently in the last 3 months is we only do one call type. So for a week, you call one type of prospect. That's it. No changing up. No, oh, I'm going to jump to expired. Oh, I'm going to jump here. Oh, I'm going to jump there. It's one type of call, and you become very skilled at it by the midweek point.
I know
and
I
you start
was.
to
I
gain some
honestly was.
confidence.
I was getting so embarrassed.
Oops, hold on. I'm going to mute everybody and then you can talk again, Glenn.
Yep.
And then Glenn, I'm going to unmute yourself and then I'm going to give you all a great nugget to wrap it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm all done. I think, but that one type of call keeps you in the same mindset, so you have the same, disposition on those calls, and you know what you're getting into.
So I think what you're saying also is that you get the rhythm going, right? And you don't have to think about it because it's the same call after the same call after the same call, right?
Yep.
So I'm gonna close this out with, there's somebody that I've been following and there's always been talked as long as I've been in Remax about this owner dominates, right? This guy, Jack Fry in Reading, PA, his office has traditionally had 35 to 42% market share in his Reading, PA metro. And he's probably had 70 to 80% of the people that would qualify to be in his company that were there. Just like off the charts success for a small market. And I'm like, it's Jack Fry. I introduced him to like a donor or somebody at R4. It's the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Fry. This guy crushes it. And he's like, that's not true. Let me introduce you to my wife. She'll explain. So like the people that are around you don't see your genius. Sometimes you have to look outside to, to get that validation. And, we need to find a way to get our team members to believe in what they're doing and to do it on a consistent level where they know it's going to be successful and they actually care about doing it. So I thank you all. I hope this inspires at least one or two of you to make a change and to have those conversations with your team members. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.